what the wise man Solomon said about friendship in the book of Proverbs. Before we get into those Proverbs, though, can you think of any Bible friendships? People who were special friends of one another. Pardon? Jesus and Lazarus. That was kind of an off and on again friendship, wasn't it? It kind of died out there, and then Jesus brought it back to life. Good. Ruth and Naomi. Great friendship there. Where you go, I will go. Your God will be my God. Your people will be my people. Some of the most poetic and beautiful words in Scripture. Any other Bible friendships? David and Jonathan, yes. Maybe the most famous Bible friendship there is. Did I hear another one? Esther and Mordecai, yes. Kind of a family thing, but a great friendship there. And they helped one another and encouraged one another and got each other to do the difficult thing, right? Did I hear another one here? Who? Peter and Timothy. Paul and Timothy. Okay. The other one was Peter, Paul, and Mary, I think. But that's another story. Peter and Mark. Mark was a companion of Peter and probably influenced his gospel from traveling with Peter. Paul seemed to have friendships himself. Can you think of other friends that Paul had? Paul and Timothy was one of them. Paul and Titus. Okay, we'll stick with Paul here for a second. Paul and who else? Paul and Silas. And who did Paul start off with? Barnabas. Paul and Barnabas. Paul might not have been the person he was had it been for old Barney the encourager. Okay? And number 4 here wants to throw in Jesus and the 12. Can you narrow that down? Did Jesus have a special friend? Peter, James, and John. I think probably his closest friend was John. Referred to as a disciple whom Jesus loved. So that's an indication there was this special relationship between Jesus and John. But James and Peter were also in that close circle of friends that Jesus had, I think, weren't they? Because those three. Okay. There it is. Okay. Peter, James, and John were kind of the inner circle of friends that Jesus had. Now, I think he was a friend to all of them, but there were special friendships. And, you know, the Bible has these special stories. One of the most famous one, I think, was the David-Jonathan connection that Cindy mentioned. And that was something that continued even after death, wasn't it? David looked out and he says, is there any one of Saul's relatives or Jonathan's family, you know, that we can help out to show favor after Jonathan died? And Mephibosheth was that individual who sat at the king's table because of David's friendship with Jonathan, a great friendship in the Old Testament. We'll do part 2. We've got 3 major points here, a number of scriptures from Proverbs, and all of these fill in the blanks, as you can see on your outline, start with an S. And what we're going to suggest here, first of all, is that friends that we have shape us. I don't know if we thought that much about that, but the friends that you have or that you will have much to do with who you are and the kind of person you're going to be. Friends have a way of shaping us, the wise man told us. And I thought this was an interesting comparison. A man of many companions, not necessarily friends, but acquaintances, may come to ruin. In other words, if you have a lot of acquaintances and it doesn't go any farther than that, you may be one who's setting yourself up for ruin. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Do you have that kind of friend that you could call in the middle of the night? Do you have that kind of friend that would stick with you through thick and thin? Solomon says, make sure you understand the difference in a companion or acquaintance and a true, reliable friend at all times. The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Now he says, if you are upright, if you are godly, if you want to please the Lord, you take this task of choosing your friends seriously. And you try to choose carefully and wisely, because you recognize that the friends you have as your close associates, the ones you're going to spend your time with, most of all, are going to have an effect on who you are and on your character. True friends, Calvin said, are hard to come by. Okay? True friends, those who will stick with you, like Hobbes will stick with Calvin. And if anybody needs a friend, it's Calvin, if you followed that comic strip for very long. You'll know that he is sort of a devious little boy, more so than probably the average 6-year-old. But he needs a friend who's loyal to him, like his stuffed tiger, who takes on reality in his own mind. That tiger is his friend regardless of what kind of situation he finds himself in. Some people, I think, today are depending on Facebook friends. And I hope you read that brief little section on the back of your bulletin. And I want to reference here just the last paragraph. Facebook friends, I think, can be helpful, can be useful. They can keep us informed of friends or casual acquaintances, as the case may be, across the country or even locally. We know what's happening in our friends' world. But the danger of that, according to this article and the research that went into it, is that it will take the place, whether knowingly or unknowingly, of face-to-face actual friends and the work that it takes to get those friends. Final paragraph. Why would online social activity be so damaging to health and well-being? You'll have to read the whole section there to know what they're talking about. But it can be damaging if that's all you've got. According to one researcher, the bottom line is that replacing in-person interactions with online contact can be a threat to your mental health. This researcher added, what people really need is real friendships and real interactions. Now, it appears to me that that research is good and it's sound, and I think that maybe we're getting into a culture here where face-to-face and real interaction friendships are becoming less and less because they are work, but they are much more rewarding than those casual social online things. We may be getting ourselves not only into those many companions that will lead us to ruin, those many acquaintances that are casual, but we'll be forsaking one of the greatest blessings that we could have in shaping who we are by having some real, genuine friends. Well, the wise man continues, do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered. Why? because you might take on the nature of that close friend. Here we're talking about a close friend. Now, we all associate with people who have difficulty with their temper, or maybe we wouldn't choose as our best friend, and we want to associate with everyone. Jesus was the friend of sinners, but it's not where he spent most of his time. It's not where he had his focus. We are outreaching, and we want to influence others in a positive and a good way. But what Solomon is saying here is be careful. If your closest friend is a hothead, you may soon look a lot like that person. And so he says, be careful, because friends tend to shape us. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. If you walk with the wise, you become wise. I've referenced before one of my college roommates. There were 5 of us, and they lived in this off-campus house. And Lynn Waller was the sharpest of the group. This is a kid who learned to read before he went to school. And he learned to read just on his own. His mother would read the newspaper to him, and then one morning he read the headline back to her without her ever reading it to him. And she wondered, how did you learn to read? He did it on his own, just by listening and paying attention. We had this fellow as a friend, which at times was kind of frustrating, because he touted himself as the professor of human knowledge, specializing that which is known to man. Now that pretty well covers it. And of course, he's doing that with pomposity, and he's doing it to get our goad. But it made the rest of us a little bit sharper. We were walking with the wise and the arrogant, but arrogant in a good way. And it made us sharper, because as he could pick out the flaws in our logic very quickly, we would die to pick out a flaw in his logic. This is somebody who would take a long afternoon nap, get up and study for 30 minutes and ace the test, and we would study all afternoon and still not do as well as he would do. But we improved by walking with him and having him as our friend. We didn't pick him out for that purpose. It just happened that that was one of the side effects of having him as a friend. Another one of those friends in that 5 college student household was Charlie Middlebrook. I wouldn't have gone to Africa in 1969 had it not been for Charlie. Charlie just used to say offhandedly, let's go to Africa. Oh, yeah, sure, Charlie. When do you want to go? Let's get us a passport. All right, let's do it. And then after saying that over and over again, one day he said, let's do it. Let's go. And there were some other college students who had been on mission trips to Africa. And so we got serious about it, and we started raising funds. And we spent 6 months in Africa. It was a life-changing event for me. But I did it, looking back on it now, because a friend here helped shape who I am, who I was to become. That's the way it happens with friendships. You're not intending to do this or to be that, but when you associate with the wise, with those who are admirable in some way, you begin to take on some of that nature, some of that character. Now, probably you can think back in your own experience, and you could say, if it hadn't been for, and maybe it was a school teacher, maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a co-worker, maybe it was a fellow student, who knows? But you begin, as you look back on some of that, you feel and recognize this person had a significant effect on my life. He says, be careful about the friendships, the close friendships you form, because you will be shaped by those friendships, either for good or for ill. Secondly, our friends support us. The heartfelt counsel of a friend is as sweet as perfume and incense. Your friend can give you good counsel. Who are you going to go to when you have a difficult situation that you're faced with, and you're relying on some outside help, some outside counsel? If you have that close friend who knows you, who knows the situation, their advice, their counsel, he says, can be sweet. Sweet as perfume, sweet as incense. Never abandon a friend, either yours or your father's. I thought this was good advice too. What about those friends of your family? The friends of your parents? If some of those are still there, still around, work to keep those friendships. When disaster strikes, you won't have to ask your brother for assistance. It's better to go to a neighbor or a friend than to a brother who lives far away. Your neighbor's close. Your good friend is close. And what Solomon says is there's a friend who's closer than a brother. And so rather than looking for help at a distance, even though it's within the family and the family has to take you in, as Robert Frost said, sometimes if you have that good friend where the friendship has been worked on and developed over time, that's where you'll find your greatest support in your hour of need. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. The kind of friend that we're talking about today is one who will stick with you, won't bail out, won't run off when trouble comes. Love prospers when a fault is forgiven, but dwelling on it separates close friends. I think you can guarantee this, that if you have a close friend that has, and this friendship has been developed over a long period of time, there has been a need for, and there will continue to be a need for, forgiveness. Now that sort of automatically comes within a family and say, oh, that was just Uncle Joe. That's just the way he is. We're not going to cut him off the Christmas list. We're going to invite him back for Christmas. You know, he's family. You got to take him in. A friend you can cut off, but a good friend, a close friend, the one that's closer than a brother, the one that will stick through adversity, will bring forgiveness in. And he'll bring it in by choice. It won't be, well, he's part of the family, and what can you do? Boot him out of the family? Flesh and blood, there's that kind of loyalty there. But a friend that's developed without those family bonds and becomes its own sort of spiritual family, that individual can be closer than the brother, and it will have a need for forgiveness. If forgiveness hasn't come into your friendship, it's probably a shallow friendship. That's, I think, one of the big problems with our relationships these days. Rather than seeing how forgiveness is a necessary part of friendship, a necessary part of any relationship that's going to go deeper, we just move on. Well, I can't forgive. Forgiveness is the heartbeat of any relationship that has any depth. And if there's not forgiveness there, you just don't have a deep relationship. It'll be there. Many will say they are loyal friends, but who can find one who is truly reliable? Yeah, hey, I'm your friend, count on me. And then if it looks like it's serious, if it looks like you're in trouble, my prayers are with you, bro. Have a good day. That's not your good friend. Okay? Be careful in choosing those friends that will support. For the despairing man, Job said, remember his friends? When all of the things started to happen to him, his whole world caved in and he lost family, he lost his health, he lost just about everything you could think of losing. And his friends were so shocked by what was happening that they were silent for 7 days. That's probably when they showed the best friendship. They weren't smart enough to know what advice to offer. They were just there as friends, hurting with silent hugs. But then they started to talk. And that's when things became a little less friendly. And they're saying, well, you know, according to the way I read my Bible, Job, if you do good, God blesses you. If you do bad, He's going to let the roof fall in. You better fess up. And he says, I don't know what to fess up to. And he says, there's a despairing individual, and I think he's talking about himself. For the despairing man, there should be kindness from his friend. What happened to you guys? You were kinder when you didn't say anything. So that he does not forsake the fear of the Almighty. Tremendously powerful words right there, and very wise. I need the help of a friend, Job says. I've lost everything. Don't let me lose my friends here. I'm in despair, and I don't want to forsake the Almighty. I need a friend. And if you think I've done something wrong, forgive me. Don't try to beat it out of me what I've done wrong, because I don't know. A friend, a good friend, supports us at all times. And then finally here, friends, the good friends that the wise man is talking about, sharpen us. They improve us. An open rebuke is better than hidden love. If someone says you're wrong about this, you got a problem here, that's better than the alternative. Well, I love him, but I'm just not going to address this. No. If you have a good friend there, friends can sharpen each other. They can help each other. And when the truth is needed, the truth should be given in a loving way. We speak the truth in love. To add to this, wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. Friends that are good friends don't avoid the wounds. Sometimes they're necessary. Sometimes we need to see ourselves as we really are from an objective friend standpoint. We may not agree with their assessment, but it's okay if we hear it. They're better than many kisses or the flattery of an enemy. Judas betrayed Jesus with a kiss. He was not acting as a good friend when that happened. To flatter friends is to lay a trap for their feet. We don't want to cause our friends to be entrapped by our flattery, so that they will assume that we're the greatest because we've flattered them, that you are the greatest and you're right on, and they're out of their minds over here. They just don't understand it like you understand it. You can set a trap by saying nice things so as not to offend. The friend that is a good friend will not be afraid of telling the truth in love. As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. I mentioned Lynn Waller and the intellectual sharpening that took place among that household because of his sharpness, and we all benefited from that. I reflect back on earlier days in Exeter here, and those of you who knew Chuck Dickens will have fond memories of him. Historically, I see him as introducing grace as a concept, as a way to live to the congregation. But I don't know anyone that I had more disagreements with than Chuck on certain points of Scripture. And what I always appreciated about Chuck, and I considered him a friend, was you had to stay sharp. Because he would disagree, or I would disagree, and we'd talk about our disagreements. And when I had a disagreement, or he had a disagreement with me, I knew I wouldn't hear about it from somebody else. I would hear about it directly from Chuck. And sometimes we went to lunch, and he'd tell me where I was wrong. And I'd say, I beg to differ. And we might stay divided on what was the accurate way of looking at something after the meeting. But I had to rethink and evaluate what he was saying. I still remember one time over lunch, I was making my point. He had brought up a disagreement that he disagreed with what I had said, and I was making my point. And I know I was right, and what you're saying, Chuck, is just not right. And he smiled and he said, I love it when you do that. Do what? Well, when you wag your finger like that. That's passion. And I've heard that from more than one source. Ron, you need more passion. I was thinking about it when Richard spoke a while ago. Bro, you need to tone it down. I need to tone it up. Okay, we're speaking as friends here. Iron sharpens iron. But we value honest interaction. Friends who are really friends will sharpen us and will make us better. The interesting thing about that lunch with Chuck that day, that wasn't the point of discussion, my passion, but I heard it. And yes, I know I need to be more emotive, more passionate, more pounding the pulpit. But I think I'm very passionate about what I do, what I believe, what I say. I just express it differently. And you folks need to honor that. Enough said? Okay. That's as passionate as I can get. And of course, we're saying some of this in good fun. But friends, Jesus himself had those good friends. Those were the ones that he relied on. Those were the ones he took up on the mountainside for a special experience. Peter, James, John, come with me. Those were the ones he went into the Garden of Gethsemane with. I've got to pray through some tough stuff. I need Peter, James, John. Would you come? Don't overlook the value of a good friend or good friends. Don't have many acquaintances. Have a few good friends. Let's stand as we sing and stand in awe if you need to respond.